Hey ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me for part 2 of how to create your own easy background, be it a castle or a brick wall. So let's get to it. So in today's video, what we're going to be doing is we are going to actually be drawing out the brickwork onto the foam that you see here. And these are the tools that I'm going to be using. Of course, I'm going to be using a pencil, a couple different types of rulers in order to mark where I'm going to be doing it. Now, it's easier to mark it where you're going to do so you don't make a lot of mistakes. You could just go straight to using a ruler and a blade, but be very aware that if you were to cut the wrong spot, you have no way of getting out of that. Now, depending on how you want your background to look, you may want a piece of foam board that isn't or doesn't have a lot of damage to it. Mine has a few different marks in it. The corner over here does have a piece that's kind of breaking off. That's fine for what I'm using it for. I kind of want it to look a little old and damaged, so it'll work out just fine for me. So again, you can see we have a couple different rollers. We have the pencil, we have a couple different blades, and we have a sharpener over here. The eraser you're not really going to need to use because you're not going to be really erasing any lines. So let's go ahead and start marking out where this brickwork is going to go. All right, so in the previous video, I decided that I'm going to do a 1x2 brick side. Now, there's a couple ways I can do this. Now, this particular drywall T-square does have the ability to go at an inch from here, and then I can draw that line all the way across. If I want to be more detailed, then what I will do is I'll actually flip over or take a smaller ruler like this one, put it against here, and then what I would do is I would mark where that 1 inch is and a couple spots here along that whole length. And that way, when I take the bigger square, I can literally just butt it up against the marks that I've made, also using that 1 inch guide over here, and that will make it so that I know that my first line that I'm going to be making down here is an inch thick. And that way I can go off of each of those upwards. Now, if I wanted to, I could make it 2 inches thick by 4 inches long, so that they'd be pretty big bricks. And I actually might do that. I haven't done that size in quite a while. But all I'd have to do in this case, I just bring this down to the very bottom, line it up against the bottom there, and then this is actually 2 inches thick. So I can then just do my first line, move that up so that this would then lay on that line, and just keep moving it up the whole way across in order to do that. Depends on how much work you want to do and how big the brick is that you want to have with that. Again, the great thing about using a pencil to do this part is that you can mark out where you want to be on this. The other important thing I'm going to point out to you is that it is 24 inches wide, or supposed to be, and you can see here that it is actually a little shy of 24 inches. It's just like anything dimensional wood wise. Like a 2x4 is actually like 3 3/4 by 1.5 inches. So it's not the actual size. So this is just a little shy of 24 by 24. So just be aware of that when you're doing your brickwork. It shouldn't matter much, but it should be okay. So guys, after thinking about this, and this will sometimes happen when you're working on your own dioramas, you kind of change things on the go sometimes. And in this case, I've done quite a few backgrounds where they're 1 inch by 2 inches. And so I'm going to go ahead and try on this one 2 inches by 4 inches. It's going to be a larger brick, but I kind of want a bigger brick in this case. It also means a little less work on the back end because there's not as many cutting that you have to do. So it's going to be 2 inches thick by 4 inches long to kind of get that scale. If I was going by 1 inch thick, it'd be 1x2. So you're definitely going to see that I'd have a smaller one here where this is going to be a much bigger one. So let's get to actually drawing these out. I'm probably going to put this into a time lapse so you guys can see how this goes. So guys, I just want to point out that there is going to be a little bit of human error in here. But what I'm trying to do is actually butt this bottom piece up onto the line that I've just made so that there's very little change in the depth here. What you want to do is by the time you get up to the very top one, you still want the top one to be about 2 inches thick. Again, this is going to change a little bit because, like I said, this isn't quite a 24 inch by 24 inch square. So the top one may be a little bit shorter. Sometimes what you can do is, depending on how you want to make this be, the shorter bricks you could always make be the size of the bricks, or the bricks that lay on the floor or against the floor area. And if you put a base against it, you can kind of have those like going into the floor type thing, so you can hide it a little bit more. All right, let's get back to it. All right, so within a span of just a few minutes, I was able to get these baselines marked out. They're as level and as even as I could. Again, this piece isn't cut out to being exactly square and level. There's a little bit of flex there. So my next thing to do, oh, and sorry about the wiggles there, is to go ahead and mark out on here the brickwork. So what I'm probably going to do is along the bottom here, I'm going to go 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. And then it'll be every other line will have that same one. And then in between those lines, this one will start off at 2 and then go to 6 and all the way across. So they're staggered with that. Also don't forget that when you're doing this, to do the sides, and I'll show you here potentially in a second, but what I'm going to do is I'll take my smaller T-square and I'll just hang it over the side of the foam here where the lines are, and I'll just make a quick draw down there, just so you have a guideline of where you'll be cutting out, because you would want to make the edges also cut out as well. Depending on which one is going to be your top or your bottom part, you may also want to do that along that part where the bricks lay. So let's get to drawing out all the brickwork. Sorry guys, I thought I was filming that, but you're going to notice that I went along and marked where the 4, the 8, the 12, the 16, and the 20 marks are along this part. And then I did the same thing where the 2, the 4, 2, 6, 10, so on, so on, so on for the second one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, run this way, and I'm going to put it against those marks that I made on this particular one. And every second one is going to have a line on it. I'm going to move that all the way down this way, doing that same line. Then I'm going to go back and do the 2 and do that on the opposite line from the ones I just did. So let's get to it. Alright guys, so within about 10 minutes, I've now got all of the bricks laid out on the foam here. And if you have a nice sharp pencil, as you can see, it will dig in and it will give you the score lines that you want. If you weren't going to texture the bricks and you were just going to paint over this would probably be fine. What I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to cut the bricks out so that way it stands out a little bit more. And there's a couple ways you can do it. Some people will literally cut the lines using a nice sharp knife, just scoring it a little deeper, then come back through with a pencil and run it across that line that they just created. to kind of give it a little bit of an indent in order to give that brick layout. I've done that in the past. Another way that I also do it is that I will come along with a nice sharp knife on an angle, and I will just cut a little bit across where this line is on both sides. So there's a little bit of a groove, and just pull it out. And I do this on here as well. That makes it look like the bricks are kind of sticking out a little bit more. It also means that when you're painting, you're not worrying about trying to force paint down into very small cuts, and having the green, pink, or blue foam, whatever you use, show up in the background. So in this case, I'm going to do my preferred method, which is cutting a V-notch across here. I'll show you how you do that, and then I'll put it into the time lapse. All right, guys, so for going ahead and cutting these out, you want a nice sharp blade. Now, what I'll typically do is I will cut a section out, and when I start to notice it's going a little dull, I'll grab my little sharpener here, I'll run it across here a few times, and then I will continue to move on. Really, the majority of the cutting is going to be on the tip here. And I'm not going too deep, I'm just going enough to make these lines in. I also, while off camera, went ahead and made the score lines down the side here, which I'll also cut out as well. So let's just get to it, and I'll show you how this is done. This shouldn't take too long as well. So basically, I just place the knife in here, and I give it just a little score. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. There can be a little bit of a wiggle in there. Just because we don't want it looking absolutely perfect. And try not to shove the end in too deep with that. Now, because I am doing such a long stretch here, I am going to stop and just re-enter in and keep on going until I get all the way down to the very back side here. Now, I did have a little bit of waviness in this first cut, but that is fine. It's going to happen. And then you can come back along and just make that same diagonal cut along the other edge. And again, it doesn't have to be the same thickness. Don't try to go too deep down because you want them to be somewhat unison. As I'm saying that, I'm actually cutting a little too deep, a little too far down on this. But that's fine. Use your mistakes, play with them. You know, maybe those bricks are a little bit more weathered down on this end than on the other end of the bricks. So if you've done that right, it should just pop right out. In this case, I don't think I got it all the way down across, so I'm just gonna come back through with another little slice on this side just to release that foam. Sometimes you gotta play with it a little bit. And then it should just peel right up. And you just keep doing that all the way across, doing the lines as well. So guys, as you can see, I've got a bit more work done on here. I've been carving out all of the intermittent pieces for the bricks. Now, I can't stress enough the importance of having a very sharp blade. When your blade gets dull, it takes you a very long time to do it and you get a lot of chips. So for instance, this is with an older blade that I had. Even with sharpening, you can see there's a lot of kind of digs and stuff. And for example, this is with a newer blade. The blade that I'm using right now, nice crisp, there isn't a lot of dings out of it. And I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of these ones in a matter of about a minute and a half with a brand new blade. Whereas down here, it took me probably a good 20, 30 minutes because of the resistance I was getting from the older doll blade, even with it sharpened. So here it is with all the bricks cut out. In the next video, we will be detailing using some aluminum foil rolled up and rolling it over top of this. I will point out again, this foam dolls blades quickly. Make sure you keep them sharp or replace the blades so that we can get through it quicker. The other thing I want to point out is that if you're using like the blue foam board, I find that's got a lot more static electricity to it, so it clings to everything. The paint board, I don't find it does that. I think it's just a different density of the foam board. It does dull blades faster, but it means cleanup is a heck of a lot easier. Anyway, guys, I hope that you liked this video. If you did, click on that like button. If you're not already subscribed, click the subscription button. And as always, guys, stay nerdy.